You guys both sound like maybe you liked Epcot from the beginning. I will be honest, I did not. The first time we went to Epcot, it was me and my husband and our two little boys, and it was boring and it was stupid, and I couldn't believe this was part of Disney World. Yeah, that was literally the things that came out of my mouth. I didn't
Patty,
get it.
I thought we were going to be friends.
I came around. Things have changed. I promise you. That was.
Welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast, where liking what you like is never a bad thing. Here's your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holiday.
Hey y'all, welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast. I'm your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holiday, and we are coming to you live from Epcot. Just kidding. We are not. Sadly, we are all at our homes. But we are going to talk about Epcot today. You know, I'm into Disney in a big way, and that absolutely includes the Disney parks. I 1000% think that you can fangirl a Disney park, because that's what I do. I am really into Disney on a whole lot of levels, but the parks are, it's that happy place. And we're going to talk about it. We are breaking this into chunks, and those chunks are pretty big in and of themselves. I mean, you can go all the way down to the land, or to even resorts, or to restaurants if you really wanted to get super into Disney World as a fandom. I would love to do that. However, this isn't a Disney podcast. It's going to have a lot of Disney in your life, but it's not. That's not my main focus here. So, but I have to talk about it because it is such a big part of me, and that's what we're going to do today. Is we are focusing on Epcot, and I have two lovely guests today, Lisa and Theresa, who kind of feel the same way about Epcot that I do. It's a lot. It's funny. When I look at the 4 Disney parks at Disney World, and somebody says, pick your favorite, I want to say, I can't. They're all like my children. I don't have favorite, but I do. I have favorites. And my 2 favorites are Magic Kingdom and Epcot. So this is going to be a fun one. All right. So you will probably recognize Theresa from a few of the other shows. I've had her on a couple of times, and she's been on with Veronica Mars and D23 Expo. So Theresa, I'm so happy to have you back.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here to talk about my favorite park, which is Epcot. So like I said, I've been on the Veronica Mars and D23 Expo podcasts. So if you have not checked those out yet, I obviously highly recommend that you do. My other fandoms outside of that are, I love all of the Mike Schur shows, particularly Parks and Rec and The Good Place. Really any of the coming of age movies from the late 90s and early 2000s, and Rice Krispie treats. They're all pretty fantastic things. I could talk extensively about each of them.
Okay, slow down. I'm making my notes of upcoming shows, Theresa, because we got to cover all of those things.
Snack food.
Yes. I think we have a friend or two that we can bring in on that snack food one. So there's Theresa. And Theresa, where can people find you online?
So you can find me. I have my blog, insightfullife.com. I'm also on Instagram at insightfullife, and primarily on Twitter at Gertie the Dino.
Yes, she is my, Theresa is my Twitter girl. She is the person that I fangirled on Twitter years ago.
And turned out so wonderful.
It did. Look where it got us. It got us to Epcot discussions on a podcast.
And isn't that what you always want in a friendship?
Always. We also have Lisa on the show with us. Now, Lisa is a new friend to me, but she knows Theresa, and she comes highly recommended. So, hi, Lisa.
Hey,
welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls. And she loves Epcot too. So, yay, right?
Yes, it's a small understatement.
All right. See, this is what we need: passionate fangirls to talk about the things that they love. That is the whole purpose of this space. Lisa Donato, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can find you on social media.
So I am a recovering attorney. I was in big law on Wall Street and outside DC for a million years. And we escaped that. I escaped that a few years ago and have been kind of like rewriting life from scratch. And as a part of that, I'm a distance runner. I do, I'm a huge fangirl of RunDisney, and distance running events in general. and sort of grew up with Disney and reconnected with it in my adulthood. So we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but kind of reconnected with Disney, fell in love with the area, and as a part of this whole like rewriting from scratch of our lives, my husband and I and our 2 children and our Great Dane and our ragdolls have relocated down to Windermere, Florida. I actually live 1.2 miles as the crow flies from Cinderella Castle. You can actually hear the water pageant like in my bedroom at night. So
I love it.
Very, very close. And EPCOT is EPCOT is the heart of it for me. Again, we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but it was the place that I wanted to make a part of my regular day. When I used to daydream about living down here, if that makes sense. Like I wanted to drop my kids off at school and go grocery shopping and then go to EPCOT for lunch. And that's sort of one of my taglines. So yeah, it's home for me in a big, big way. So as far as my fandoms, I also enjoy Rice Krispies treats. But like I said,
it brings everybody together.
It's a great thing. And every time I eat one, I always forget how good these are. But anyway, but yeah, I'm a distance runner and I'm a huge RunDisney fangirl. I do every event on property. And I also dig photography, in a big way and have been sort of developing that skill. And that's about the extent of what I have time for, with the boys. And you can find me. I have a blog called thecastlerun.com where I sort of document this rewriting of life and being a Disney local and RunDisney and all that good stuff. And I'm also on Instagram heavily as The Castle Runner. And I also have a page and group on Facebook under The Castle Run as well.
Awesome. Well, I just met you, but I love you already, Lisa, because everything you said basically is like speaking to my soul. Also, huge RunDisney fangirl over here. Over the long distance crap, but the rest of it, I'm right on board. I'm there to hold the sign and to cheer people on with the long distance stuff at this point because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm part of the cheer squad.
I am very much of the opinion that cheering a marathon is much harder than running a marathon.
I will tell you what. I have cheered the last, I think 2 or 3. It must be 2 because I ran the marathon in 2016 and then I've cheered 17 and 18. No, 17, 18, 19, 17. Okay, so it's the last 3. And it's long and hard and exhausting, and that's what she said. But yeah, no, it's definitely it's a thing. It's a thing, but it's so amazing to watch the runners. That is my favorite part. I honestly, even if I was in shape and had desire to run a marathon again, I would have a hard time giving up the cheer aspect because it really does. It means so much to see everybody putting it out there and giving it their all. And of course, at Disney, it's also got that added element with all of the costumes and all the fun signs, and you're just on Disney property, and everyone's sparkling pixie dust, and it's just so cool. But all right, that's for another day. We will come back to Fangirl RunDisney another time. I keep saying that it hasn't happened yet. I got to make it happen, but it's going to happen. Because that is such a big part of my life as well, too. But we are going to talk about EPCOT today, which, is about to it's currently undergoing some big changes and some big stuff I think is in the pipe. And we'll get to some of that in a moment. I know since Lisa's local, she's got more boots on the ground. She can tell us a little bit about some of the things that she's noticed since she's watching, because I assume you are watching that Guardians roller coaster being built. Yes. I'm so excited about it.
I'm going to block my ears for this.
Teresa. We'll get to your reasoning in just a little bit. We'll get there. But for me, it's funny that you guys both sound like maybe you liked EPCOT from the beginning. I will be honest, I did not. The first time we went to EPCOT, it was me and my husband and our 2 little boys, and it was boring and it was stupid, and I couldn't believe this was part of Disney World. Yeah, that was literally the things that came out of my mouth. I didn't get it.
I thought we were going to be friends.
I came around. Things have changed. I promise you. That was back in 2000 and probably 2004 when I had those thoughts. So obviously some time has passed. But yeah, no, I didn't get it. And for a long time, I even told people, if you have little kids, like, don't even bother with Epcot, like, stay away. Yeah, I know. So misguided. There's so much, there really is a lot to do there. And it's my second favorite park. It's the place I want to go after I get my fill at Magic Kingdom. I'm all about hanging out in Epcot. I haven't even done like half the countries, and I've been to Epcot more times than I can count. But there's just so much to do that I was really just woefully misrepresenting the knowledge that was there, when it came to this park. So things have changed. So how about each of you? Do you remember the first time you went to Epcot and what your feelings were?
So I know for me, my first family trip to Disney was in 1990. And, I think the late 80s were peak Epcot. And my favorite souvenir from that trip, which I still have, was my Walt Disney World pictorial souvenir. I do have some fuzzy memories of actually being at Epcot, primarily of the top floor of ImageWorks, which had, the Dreamfinder School of Drama and the Rainbow Tunnel, which everybody remembers. But when we got home and I had this pictorial souvenir, I would flip through it, and the pages I always focused on were the Epcot pages. I loved looking through and seeing Horizons and World of Motion, the Living Seas Pavilion, the old iteration of it. And I just want to say it was in 2008. That was my second trip back to Disney. So I had a big 18-year gap, and I had one day at Disney on that trip, and I was immediately hooked again. I was like, I need to get back here. So we came back the following year, and we did all the parks. That was during Food and Wine Festival. And I felt like that was when I really got immersed in the current, like what Epcot was now. And I'm just happy. It's always the first place I want to go to every time I'm back in Florida, which luckily has been pretty frequently lately.
What about you, Lisa?
So my first family trip to Disney was the summer of 1982. Wonk, wonk. If any of you know your dates, you know that I missed the opening of Epcot on that trip by 2 months. But it is kind of cool. I mean, I was 4. I have no memory of it, other than like looking back on pictures now. But it is cool to know that like I was there while they were finishing building it. And then we went back pretty much every year when I was a little girl after that trip. And again, like I was very young, like probably too young to have like very specific memories of events there. But some of my earliest memories, period, not just earliest memories of Disney, but earliest memories, period, are being in Horizons and turning the bend and smelling oranges. Which that's just one of my formative childhood memories. To this day, when I smell oranges, I think I'm there. And being in the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot. And it's funny. I mean, it's still very cool when you go and you look up and it still kind of has that feeling. But when you're a child in Mexico Pavilion, and I love going there with my kids now because I know they're seeing it through those eyes, it feels vast and like open air space, and like the way that they sort of move the air in that room and, the sort of night sky up above you. As a child in that space, it really does feel like you're in a marketplace in the evening outdoors. So it's memories like that, I think, that are just sort of the like quiet place type Disney memories that drew me in again when I was an adult. And like I said, I mean, they're not just some of my earliest Disney memories, they're some of my earliest memories, period. So yeah, just as a little girl and being there and like the fiber optics and Spaceship Earth and all that good stuff. So all good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So what is it now as adults that specifically draws you into Epcot, that makes you want to go back or make it your first stop or make it your lunchtime routine? What is it about Epcot that you think is so special? That just makes you, I don't know, that just makes you want to hang out there.
So for me, it's just the piece of being a local, like particularly as being a local, I think it's sort of the park that warrants the daytime visit or the quick stop in, as frequently as it does. I mean, walking into Magic Kingdom is very grand, and, you turn the corner and you see the castle, and it's, you're surrounded by people seeing it for the first time, and it's all amazing. And I do love like just sort of sitting on Main Street with a popcorn and watching the people go by. But otherwise, I mean, that and, studios, and I have a soft spot for Animal Kingdom, so I'm not going to go there. But it's the park that isn't so much about being on vacation to me as just sort of being present in a moment and taking it in and sort of enjoying the little details and sort of sitting in that corner table in Morocco with my food from Tangerine Cafe or at the Koi Pond in Katsura, at Katsura Grill at the Japan Pavilion. There's so many sort of quiet moments. I mean, there are fun rides and there's cool things for my kids to do, but like as far as like a repeat performer in a place that just can be sort of quietly enjoyed on a day-to-day basis for an hour here or 30 minutes there. And also just how much it changes over the course of the year. There's, now there's festivals starting, mid-August and then going through end of May, beginning of June. So it really is the park that I think, not just big changes happening because they're building a ride, but, over the course of each and every year, there's just so much to experience differently in the park. That particularly as a local, I think really draws you in because it's not like you're going back to the same place a month later.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going
to sound a little bit like I'm echoing Lisa, but for me, it's the atmosphere that's there. If you were to ask me, my top 3 things that I love about Disney World, period, I would say that number 2 is probably the background music in Future World. I could sit there and, right in Innoventions Plaza, sit and watch the Fountain of Nations just for an afternoon and just be at peace. And, you mentioned it's what makes it the park you want to hang out in. And that's the place where when I'm in town and I want to get together with some friends who are local, EPCOT's the place I'm going to suggest that we go, just because it's a good time to connect with other people. You don't have to feel like you're rushing from one place to another. I think it's a park that really, you enjoy it that much more when you're just taking the time and being a part of the experience versus feeling like you have to check off all of these boxes and things that you have to see and do. And it's very easy to just walk around and discover things that you might not have noticed before just because you took a slightly different path. And, I know not everybody is a fan of the festival. Some people feel like they happen too often, but I love how everyone has a special aspect to it that just enhances the park. I love how it looks during Flower and Garden. I love the experiences that they bring, all of the interactivity during Festival of the Arts. And obviously, food and wine, I love to eat. So there's always, any time of the year that I'm there, there's something special that I can do. There's something unique. And it's just a place that I feel like I can go hang out with my friends, hang out by myself, and I know I will always have a good time.
Just listening to you guys talk about that, I think that, part of my love of the Disney stuff is I am an attractions girl. And I think that's why I was dragging my feet so much about EPCOT. EPCOT was pretty much the place that I would go to get my margaritas. Still is. That has not changed. But that was the big draw for me, was to go and walk around World Showcase. I would walk to Mexico and then walk from Mexico to Germany and then back to Mexico again because, you had to go back for your next margarita. So I can't even say, it took me a while to get all the way around. But
stumble around.
Confessions. I'm just saying. I need 2 Mexicos. Can we have one on each? we need to do something here, people. Anyway, but that was kind of my thing, is that, and that's why I don't want to say I avoided it, but it just wasn't first on my list, because I as I've gotten older, I've actually become a little bit more of a thrill seeker and thrill junkie. And so I wanted to ride all of the rides and all of that stuff. And EPCOT just doesn't have a lot of that there. Now, what they do have is special. It's different. It's very unique. I really love Soarin'. I enjoy Test Track. I actually am probably one of the 3 people that like Mission Space. I know most people don't, but I will tell you that the first time I ever rode it was after like 3 margaritas. And that was an experience, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. So I do appreciate a lot of those touches and the how it's trying to be something different. And I do love that about EPCOT. But as I've gotten older, I've also been able to embrace and really enjoy like these festivals and all the different aspects of the different things that they're trying to do, particularly when it comes to World Showcase and how they're really focusing, all the different cultures and experiences that you can have there. I appreciate that now. I mean, I joke my family will probably never get to Europe because there's too many of us and we're too expensive to get there. But I will show my kids the world by taking them to EPCOT and hitting up all the World Showcase. So, yeah. Now, do either one of you have, I don't know, a special moment or is something that really stands out that just when you think of EPCOT, you can't help but think of this moment for you?
Yes, I have a very distinct one that comes to mind. So a bit of background, in the mid 2000s, Disney introduced something called the Living Character Initiative. And one of the first places they introduced that was in EPCOT with the Muppet Mobile Labs. And this was Beaker and Dr. Bunsen Honeydew kind of traveling around on this little device, and they would talk to the guests in EPCOT. And it wasn't there very long. It went away for a while, but maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they brought it back for a period of time. And it wasn't on a schedule. They wouldn't announce when it was happening. You just got lucky and it was there. And fortunately, I was there on a birthday trip, and it was roaming through Future World, and they asked for volunteers. And obviously I'm going to shoot up my hand because it's Muppets.
Of course.
And they picked me. And so it was a very short experience, but I got to talk to a Muppet. Like, who gets to say that? Who can say they had a full-on several-minute conversation with some Muppets? Right. I mean, life-changing. That's, my inner child came out. It was everything I wanted it to be. And luckily, they also had a PhotoPass photographer nearby, so that entire experience was captured for me to have later, so I could look at it and say, oh yeah, there's that ridiculous smile. And
that's awesome.
It's just goofy grin on my face the entire time. And I kept thinking, like, there is literally nowhere else in the world that something like this is going to happen other than in a Disney park and in my favorite place of EPCOT. So it's, whenever I think of, magical moment, it's absolutely that one.
What about you, Lisa?
Yeah. So I think I'm just going to go back to RunDisney here. And, I think, if you haven't run Disney before, I would encourage anybody who has a love for Disney in any way, shape, or form. I don't care how old you are, what size you are, how in shape you are, to go and experience at least one RunDisney event, because it is such an incredibly unique way to experience the parks. And a lot of the runs are really centered on EPCOT. Most of the 5Ks take place in EPCOT. The 10Ks sort of center on EPCOT. And the half marathons generally start and finish in EPCOT. And the marathon also finishes in EPCOT. You sort of come in right before mile 25, and round out, around Spaceship Earth to the finish line. So for me, it's really the RunDisney events that, at least in my adult life, are my most unique and special experiences in EPCOT. Even in the 5Ks, you're in the park pre-dawn, they've got the torches lit, music going, characters out and about. It's just an amazing experience. The same thing for the 10Ks. But for the halves and the marathon, especially if you're running the Dopey, you're basically running. There's no feeling in the world like finishing those races, and you're kind of coming around the bend around the Fountain of Nations, and they're usually blaring something like "I Can Go the Distance" that'll make you cry. Oh. And then you're coming.
That makes me cry even without running.
Yeah, I like finishing the Dopey, like coming around Fountain of Nations where they're blaring "I Can Go the Distance." Like, if you're not in tears, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to do. And then for the half marathons on the other weekends, and then on marathon weekend for the marathon, as you're rounding that corner to exit backstage around Spaceship Earth, there's a full-on gospel choir. So, Patty, I'm sure you've experienced this as well. I think like a lot of people think that, maybe they've passed on and didn't realize it until that moment. But it's just wild. It's just the coolest experience, like to have the full-on gospel choir singing and you're like exiting around Spaceship Earth.
It really, it really is. That was when I did my first Princess Half, I signed up for it, early because that's what you do. And then I got pregnant and I did my first half marathon at like almost 7 months pregnant, 6.5 months pregnant. And so I knew about this gospel choir, and all I cared about was getting to that gospel choir. Like, I wanted that moment. I needed that moment. Y'all, I walked up and they like sang out one song and wrapped it up. And I was like, whoa. No, I needed my moment. Like, where's my moment? That's okay. I went back multiple times for many RunDisney races, and I've had that moment. And yes, it's just as you described. It's really important and impressive. And my EPCOT moment also harkens back to the RunDisney experience, and it was being told essentially right as I left Hollywood Studios. I overheard a cast member. There were these buses, and they're the big scary buses, and the buses, for those of us in the back, are you're going to get on and we're going to take you off the course buses. You don't want to get on those buses. Those buses were parked there. And there was, as I was getting ready to go through the boardwalk and get over to EPCOT, I saw a cast member talking to a runner in front of me. And I was like overhearing things. I wasn't sure what I heard. I ran up to him. I was like, I'm sorry. What did you just say? And he looked down at my bib and he looked up at my face and he said, Patty, you're going to finish your marathon today. You are free to go. And I was like, you're kidding me. Like, I'm safe. I'm totally safe. He was like, yes, ma'am. From that moment on, for those last 2 miles through EPCOT, I literally put on like the victory lap hat. Okay. And I soaked every single second of it in, even though I just so desperately wanted to be done because I am very slow. I was way in the back and it was hot that day and I was ready to be done. But at the same time, that's what it was, that getting to go all the way through the World Showcase and spend all that time in EPCOT with that music. Like, as you mentioned, it's we had actually all the EPCOT music back in the World Showcase, but then when you get out towards the front, then you get to hear something different. But it was fantastic, and I ended up I remember coming around the corner and there was like 2 of my friends standing there right in front of Morocco. And I was like, oh, you guys already done? And they're like, no, we've been waiting for you. We want to finish with you. And they'd been waiting for like an hour for me to finally get to that point. But I mean, I had total tears. So I was like, So, and then another friend sent her husband up ahead so that we could cross the finish line with, yes, you guessed it, margaritas. Because of course, if I was going to finish a marathon, it was going to be with a margarita from EPCOT in my hand. And so, yeah, that's, EPCOT has that tie for me as well. So much RunDisney, and then all of it there is centered around the whole EPCOT-iness of finishing these races or running through these races. So it's just a really special place and special moments, for things like that. Now, do you guys have a one word reaction to this park that sums it up for you? And you cannot use magical.
Well, if I can't use magical, no, I'm only kidding. For me, it's home. It's just home. And I'm not saying that in a capital H cheesy Disney way that much. But like when we were sort of turning the wheels and thinking about moving here, the moments that were motivating it the most for me were the quiet sort of sitting still moments in EPCOT. Like, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but like I have a table in Morocco. Like I hesitate to give it away, but if you go to Tangerine Cafe, there's some tables outside. Well, if you keep walking, there's a little arch and there's a tiny table sort of just secluded from everything else in the world in this beautiful little space. And I tend to take my food back there. And it's in places like that or by the Koi Pane Katsura where I would have these moments where I was just like sitting still and eating really good food and just being in that place. And it wasn't because I was on a roller coaster or staring at a castle or, exhausted with my children at some expensive, character meal. It was just those like quiet moments where I was like, yeah, like I want this to be my place. Like I want this to be like my day. And so like this whole move down here and this whole like crazy, like up my family and like plant them a mile from the castle like situation that we're in right now is really inspired by like those moments that made me want to call EPCOT home. So yeah, that's my word.
Well, and for me, my word, I was thinking about it and I kept coming back to its community, which I know is sort of cheating because it's in the full title of Epcot. It's right there in the middle.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it and it really fits.
No, that's not a cheat. I think it totally fits.
But
I
it
buy
fits,
it.
especially how, what I was talking about earlier, how.
I would like to change my word to prototype.
Yeah. But when I think about, how I spend my time there, that's where I see my people. That's where I connect with my community. But if you also look at the park, what it represents and the two components of it, you have World Showcase, which, it gives you a glimpse into so many different cultures. And what I love so much about that are the cast members, the cultural representatives that they have, and how powerful it is when you get to talk to them about their home countries, when you get to, have them point out some of the aspects of what they would see at home, what is authentic for them. How I love Illuminations because the entire script, all of the entire show is about how powerful we are when we come together collectively. And you move into Future World and it shows the importance of nurturing all these different aspects of a community and how you can make that thrive. And I think especially for kids, it gets them excited in thinking about ways they can contribute to make their own community better. And it's just, it all sorts of comes together and, just shows how well they thought when they were naming this park.
You guys are so adorable. I love the Disney hearts. I'm like over here going, those are some really good answers. I got nothing. Margaritas? That's my word? I don't know. All right. So we talked a little bit, or we mentioned changes. We haven't talked about these changes. And I know Theresa has some strong feelings on this. Theresa, are you part of Diz Twitter that hates all the current ways that Epcot has changed, or are you accepting of them? I am very much there's very few things I get super spun up about, particularly when it comes to Disney, because I always hearken back to what Walt said, which was, Disneyland was never meant to be complete. It will always be changing, that blah, 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 blah that he always says. So in my heart, I know things will change. And for the most part, they end up being good changes. Now, there's some things I don't love. And I Frozen is that example, but on a very understandable, I know where Disney's coming from. Of course they had to do that. It would have been, they had to do that, right? I understand why they did it.
They could have, I understand why they did it. I would appreciate it more if it was in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, no, and I get that too. Sticking it in, it's a mythical country and they're putting it in a real one. Come on, guys. So yeah, no, I do understand that as well. But I personally don't get super spun up. I try to look at the glass half full and roll with the punches. Now there are things I absolutely thought was crap. Like when they put the gift shopping in the theater at Disneyland, that's sacred ground, y'all. Don't mess with that. Make a buck.
That was a choice.
Yeah, make a buck anywhere else you want. But there's some things where you just got to say, whoa. And I'm glad they did walk that back. So that's the other thing too, is I do feel like they try to listen to fandom to an extent. Not always. We don't always get our way. But anyway.
Well, I will say that touches on, I won't say that I hate all of the changes that are coming. I won't. I do have my quippy remark that it's EPCOT. It's not EPCOT. So it's not, it's not intellectual property community of tomorrow. So I don't love the shoehorning of characters into attractions in ways that don't make sense and in ways that they're, when they're doing it strictly to make it bring more characters into the park. I am really not happy about the Guardians attraction, only because for two reasons. Well, I don't really understand what it has to do with Future World, and I feel really insulted that their explanation for it was because Peter Quill visited Epcot as a kid. I am like, just don't do that. At least don't do that. And the other one that is just frustrates me so much is the beer garden that they're putting into Future World. Because like you were saying, that is just a money grab. I don't understand what place it has there, why you would do that when you have World Showcase and where they have these, unique beers from around the world, where drinking around the world is a big thing for a lot of people. I don't understand why you have to put that into Future World, where it is such a calmer area of the park.
Well,
that's a choice. I just don't understand that. I am really excited.
As the resident drunk, I can tell you why. It's really, really far back to go to Germany, dude.
She wants 2 Mexicos. I mean, come on.
I do want 2 Mexicos. No, and honestly, the funny thing, and this is the literal truth. I actually don't drink a lot. I only drink when I am on property. Isn't that weird? It's a very, I have something about needing to spend $16 on a margarita that is really odd. But I don't really drink a lot, but I do like to have a drink at an EPCOT. But anyway, that's kind of, part of me was like, they're just trying to I don't know. I can see that, yes, as a money grab, but also as maybe a, way of spreading out traffic. I don't know.
But don't call it a beer garden, because what that invokes in me is just not that's not Disney.
We can all feel what it invokes in you.
Like I said, and there are things, I am really excited about. I think the space restaurant is going to be very cool. I think what they're doing with the play pavilion, I think that's an excellent way of, I don't want to say secluding characters to a space, but I think that's a great way of, they can test out a lot of different things in that space, characters included. I think I'm excited about some of the rumored expansions coming into Future World that I feel like we've been waiting on announcements for a few years now. So there are things coming that I think will work well. I am excited about. However, I feel I'm not excited about all of them. And I feel like I've made my point.
My
feelings are known.
No, and I know you're not opposed to change. You're just
right.
You have to take issue with some of the placement, so to speak.
Yes.
And just for a little history here, like Theresa and I were sort of sitting next to each other at the Parks and Resorts talk at D23 in 2017. We all knew what was coming, but when things like Guardians were announced,
I remember the moment they said it. You turned to me, you're like, "I'm so sorry, but I'm excited."
I was like trying to contain myself. But
why was that exciting to you, Lisa? Why was that exciting to you? Is it because you like Marvel, because you like a roller coaster, or was it like you can see the vision that they're doing, or all of the above? Like what is it that made you that immediate excitement?
From a, I'm not a purist. I'll own that. But, I dig Marvel? I dig Marvel. Do I dig a good coaster? I dig a good coaster. Do I love...
I believe the day of that panel, she was dressed as Gamora. It's also for context.
Yes, I was dressed as Gamora. But I covered it up with a Dreamfinder t-shirt halfway through the day.
Yes, that's right.
But that said, I understand where Theresa's coming from, and I feel it. I think I just have this immense trust in Disney and the degree to which they get their fan base and the way that they execute things. And I just have faith that it'll be done correctly. I mean, you can really, like you said, like I am physically here, day to day, and I am watching that building go up and it disappears into the horizon. Like it's where Universe of Energy was. So it's sort of, back right, Spaceship Earth in Future World. And when you look at it from World Showcase, it really does sort of disappear into the way that they've done the building. It's a massive box and it's an enclosed coaster. And the way that they've colored it, Disney is a genius when it comes to paint color. When you look at it from afar, you really barely see the thing. So it does disappear into the space. But I think for me, do I love Marvel? I adore Marvel. I love a good coaster. I'm a huge thrill junkie. But I also have 2 little boys who I want to love Disney as much as I do, and so when I see them enjoying, the new Fab 5 shorts that are sort of in that Ren and Stimpy style, that a lot of people hate so much, they love them. And so I love them. It's what's drawing the new generation in. And so my little boys who love Marvel and love roller coasters, they love Test Track and they love Epcot. I mean, they've got a mom who sort of knows how to take them around and show them the things that are going to draw them in. But like, if we were just here on a family vacation and I wanted my little boys to fall in love with Epcot, like that coaster is going to be one of the things that draws them in. And so I think that like I understand deeply like where people like Theresa are coming from as far as like getting cringy about some of the choices that are being made with the changes. But like that being said, like I want my kids to love Disney as much as I do. And if that means sort of incorporating IP in a smart way, because I do trust them, then I think that it's not a bad thing. And I think like, look at, we don't know sort of what the long-term sort of Imagination Pavilion plan is. Mm-hmm. But look at what they're doing with Figment. They're so smart. They're incorporating him. They know that he's beloved. We're seeing him in the festivals. We're seeing him at Festival of the Arts. They're taking out Illuminations. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Nobody loves Illuminations more than I do. I'm going to be weeping at that. I'm going to be carried out at that last show. But I also get that it's...
Oh my gosh. Bye. I hate Illuminations.
And Lisa's hanging up now.
Bye, Lisa.
I'm doing deep breathing exercises right now. But also, like, I kind of get it because I watch Illuminations now in the park, like from almost a protective standpoint. Like, I love it so much. Mm-hmm. It's been around for 20 years. The technology is, somewhat outdated. I can own that. I can, and if somebody is sort of coming into the parks for the very first time and has just seen Happily Ever After and then comes to Epcot to see their nighttime spectacular, like I'm looking around me like, love it, please love it. But I just,
right.
I know it's time. And like the fact that Disney is temporarily replacing Illuminations with Epcot Forever, which is a show completely dedicated to extinct attractions.
Yes, I'm very excited about that.
and that's the kind of thing, like things like featuring Figment as heavily as they are, or like doing this Epcot Forever show, which is completely dedicated to like nostalgic Disney. It just shows me like they're so smart. They understand like the people that they're taking Illuminations from who really care are excited about what's coming the next night because they're the same people who love like all the old extinct attractions. So I just see the way that they're implementing the changes that they're implementing. And I think it's so smart. And, Peter Quill visited Epcot. I mean, okay, like it's a little cheesy and like I can feel your like vitriol when you're saying that, but I'm just curious to see how it's implemented because I just think they're so smart with their fan base and sort of finding that delicate balance between catering to their long-term sort of nostalgia-loving community and providing like a state-of-the-art experience to somebody who's never been here before and just paid over $100 for their park ticket.
I think it's so funny that Theresa has such strong feelings about Peter Quill coming to Epcot, where to me, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Like that will be, I totally bought it. I was like, I can see how they could take this as part of the story and wrap us and bring us in.
So
I know. I had different strokes for different folks, I guess. I don't know. But I just think it's going to be. I think it's going to be an interesting way, and also, I do come from my heart of hearts is all things Marvel and Disney World. We just can't do a whole lot of Marvel, and so anything that I can get, I'm going to jump on board regardless of whatever it is. Especially if you're giving me a roller coaster on top of that, like I'm 1,000% in. Look at what Disneyland did with Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. That is such a brilliant ride, such a brilliant reimagineering, such a fantastic way of doing it. Even people that were so mad and so angry that Tower of Terror was going, which I get, like I do understand that history and the feelings that ride brings to you. But what they were able to turn that into, it just is freaking mind-blowing. And so I just have super high hopes that just like Lisa, in Disney, I trust to an extent. I think they are smart. I think they are going to come up with something that is going to fit better than the information they've given us thus far, because that is one thing. They do keep a lot of stuff close to the chest, no matter what some of these fan sites want to, breaking news.
Fan
for the
sites and
most
heavy
part.
quotes.
Yeah, for the most part, and I say that because I used to do that with RunDisney all the time. I used to like to break news for them, and they love me for that. Anyway,
Sure.
I don't do that anymore. I've grown up. But anyway, point being, I do think that these changes. I don't know. Again, I look at EPCOT as a future, right? And it's something that should always change. For me, EPCOT should absolutely always change, and these outdated things absolutely should be updated with care, with understanding, with plenty of time. I mean, they announced a long time ago Illuminations was going to go away for those that really, needed to see it 17,000 more times before it did. And I think that, at least they're not just yanking it out from underneath you. One day it's here, the next day it's gone. Like sometimes Disney will also do that. So, I think that they're handling Epcot as well as possible. But I do also believe that it was time for a lot of these big changes. And I'm excited about, what's to come and what we're going to see. Do you guys have any one quick tip that you would give to somebody who's visiting Epcot for the first time? If there's any, hidden thing or small experience that you really want them to experience and take part in, or it can even be a big thing, but, just what's the one thing that comes to mind that you would tell a first timer who's going to Epcot?
So I know it's really, really hard to tell someone this when it's sort of their trip of a lifetime, make every moment count, plan it down to the last second type experience. And I get that. I'm very type A. I used to plan my trips too. But I think it's the one park where I would just encourage you to kind of like put your app away, put your itinerary in your pocket, and just kind of let yourself explore and enjoy. And like do kind of seek out, those little places that I've talked about, like the koi pond at Katsura, or the little chill spots in Morocco. Don't miss the Voices of Liberty, please, at the American Adventure, and then go see the film. It's wonderful. And if you happen to be there, like I said, from, late August until late May or early June, now there's a different festival every few months. So like check out which festival is going to be happening while you're there, whether it's Food and Wine or Festival of the Holidays or Festival of the Arts or Flower and Garden. Kind of check out like what's going to be happening at the time that you're there. Like a lot of those festivals have really, really amazing either concert series. There's like the Candlelight Processional, which is amazing during Festival of the Holidays. Kind of check out like what's doing at the festival that's going to be happening if there is a festival happening while you're there, and make sure that you make time for that, because just sort of exploring those festivals is, an event in itself. If you're on the dining plan, like a lot of the really great food items or snack credits, for example, Festival of the Holidays, there's like a version of that country's sort of Santa Claus or the Duruma vendor at Japan that does their shows during Festival of the Holidays. I'm rambling, but the gist of it is just like explore sort of before you go what festival is happening while you're going to be there and what they offer. And then don't miss kind of the little hideaway spots in World Showcase, whether it's to see the Voices of Liberty, which is pretty much considered to be the best a cappella group in the country, singing at the American Adventure, and the film there. There's films in France and China and Canada, and different performers throughout all the countries. So just kind of, stick your phone in your pocket, stick your itinerary in your pocket, and just let yourself explore. That's the gist of it for me. And ride Test Track.
Yeah. Well, and mine's pretty similar. And Patty, I'm also laughing that you say for a first timer, because you yourself admit, having not gone very far past Mexico, is that, really walk into the pavilions. I wonder how many people know that there's a waterfall in the Canada Pavilion. It's, it's on your way. I guess you would go to it if you're on the way out of the Circle Vision film, but you can also, if you don't want to watch the film, you can just wander back there. You can wander through the gardens. I think some of these walking paths are former smoking areas, which now that that's not allowed in the parks, makes them nice little secluded areas. You just need to stop in the shade. Just want to kind of, have a nice, just spot time away from the crowds. But there's so many just little details that you would miss. Like you said, if you're quickly running from one thing to another, if you're on your phone, if you're not just taking the time to be present, I think Epcot is a park that you do get so much more out of when you're there, just really noticing all of your surroundings. And so I think it's important to really walk through all of the pavilions, discover what's not just on the surface as you're walking by and admiring the architecture, what is really.
And I think that's
inside.
one of the reasons why it's so easy to not like Epcot if you're going in as a first timer, just as a vacationer, because if all you're doing is like looking at the list of rides, attractions on your app and, seeing like what the next thrill ride is, then you're going to think the park sucks because there's not that much there on that list. It's more about sort of a place to explore and see and eat and drink and see shows and there are good rides there, but if you're sort of reliant on your app and your like type A vacation planning experience, then you're probably not going to appreciate that part.
Yeah. And that was definitely me. This is even before apps were a thing, up until probably the last 2 or 3 years. And that's really when I started kicking it in and spending a lot more time in Disney. But I used to live in Orlando. And even then we would walk in and I was like, oh, why did we do that? Can we park hop? It was not my place because I wanted to do. Well, you can still do, but you're going to do things just in a very different way at Epcot than you are at these other parks. And, for first timers that are going, I like to tell them is Epcot can be the most magical place on earth, or not, all depending on your attitude and what it is that you hope to get out of it. And I love those tips as far as, getting back into the pavilions, because that is very true. It wasn't, Theresa, it wasn't until I started really traveling to Disney World with our friend Tanya, who has this huge desire to eat all the snacks, that I even knew half of those places had more in the back. Like France, I never went in and bought any food in France. And you two both are going, what? Like I saw, I stood out and I took the picture out up front, with the fountain with the Eiffel Tower, but I never really walked back in there. And same thing with Japan, same thing with Morocco. Like I just never, took those experiences in until recently. And I've been going to Disney World since 2003 consistently. So that just tells you, people, that when people say you need at least a week to do everything at Disney, well, that's a big fat lie. You need like 15, 20 years to do everything at Disney. Because this is why it never gets old. This is why I fangirl the entire resort so hard, is because I am always finding something new and something exciting and something different to learn, to see, to do. And, that's what Epcot is ripe for that. And, put down the margarita and, and keep walking, and, you can really, really enjoy it there. Well, I really do appreciate you guys coming on and having these discussions with me. It was a lot of fun to talk about Epcot with y'all. And, we're going to just go ahead and wrap this up. I had, such a great time fighting with Theresa about how she's wrong about Guardians.
Well, I do want to say I do agree with what Lisa was saying, that I trust the Imagineers to put their heart into it, to make it a good experience. I'm still going to ride it. I'm sure I'm still going to have fun. I'm not going to like where it is, but that's not going, I'm not going to be one of those people who's going to boycott it because of that. I think it's still, in ways, it will add to the park, even if I wish it added
I get
more.
it.
It's in the corner. It's in the back corner.
Well, and like I said, and I mean, Universe of Energy. Ellen's Energy Adventure needed an update. I'm not going to say that. Oh, that I love the dinosaurs. I love the dinosaurs. They were. I'm sorry. Wait, Ellen and Bill Nye were around long enough to come back into style again. They were. Yes. So I think I trust them. I think they will do a great job with the attraction. It is going to be an amazing attraction. I can still want more.
Fair. That's totally fair. All right. Well, this particular fangirling topic is part of the We're Disney People, What Do You Mean There's Other Vacations series. And be sure that you check out the other parks as well. I'm starting off with all of Walt Disney World, but don't you worry. Disneyland folks, we're covering those as well, because that, well, don't tell Disney World, but that's really what I love the most. So we're gonna get some fangirling of Disneyland happening and Disney California Adventure as well. And I actually have somebody who wants to come and tell me she went on the ultimate Disney road trip. She went to all the Disney parks, and she has a favorite. And it's not in the US. So she's going to come on and have that discussion too. So there's a lot more Disney parks content coming out over the next couple of months. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit those 5 stars. It helps other fangirls find us, and nobody likes to fangirl alone. And don't forget, guys, every Monday I bring the Monday Movie Minute, and every Thursday you're going to get a show just like this, where we talk about one topic with a guest or two. And we just let our geek flag fly over how excited we are about whatever that may be. Thanks for hanging out with us today in Epcot on the No Guilt Fangirls podcast. And we hope you'll come back to fangirl with us again real soon. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Theresa.
Bye. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.